It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. It's another edition of Frontline Friday with my special guest. We got 3 specials this week for Bridget Gleason. How you doing?
I am doing great, and I'm glad that I got 3 specials today. Thank you.
Yes. Well, it's one of those
I'm
days.
up to 3. That's my max so far, which is fine. I'm happy at 3.
Yeah.
I'm happy at 3.
Well, and it could be you're getting rewarded because I was able to get, not that necessarily involves you, but I was able to get Springsteen tickets today. So,
it doesn't involve me, just in case anyone's wondering. It does not involve me. I wish that it did. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where my wife called me and say, are you by your computer? I go, yeah. She goes, oh, yeah, I was going to surprise you with this, but I'm not at my computer, and Springsteen tickets go on sale for in 2 minutes. Can you get on your computer and see if you can get some? So I lucked out. So,
that is fantastic.
Yeah, the Meadowlands in August.
Oh, how great. Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
The rest of us are jealous. Well, at least this one is, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen him in concert, so I won't even say how long it's been since the last time I saw him.
I know.
Or the first times I saw him. So, but yeah, I'm excited. So it'll be a good little birthday present back in August.
That's great. Great.
Yeah. So, gosh, one thing we haven't done for a while is we haven't done a weather forecast. I was just wondering how the weather is where you are today.
Oh, beautiful. Sunny, warm. God, yesterday I walked out of the building, which is sometimes unusual, at midday, and it was in the 80s. Super warm. Today's not quite that warm, but it's a beautiful day. Super thankful for a beautiful day. Where are you, Andy?
On the West Coast today, in San Diego, and in the San Diego,
likely beautiful there.
The San Diego studios of Accelerate. It is. We're experiencing our typical June gloom weather. It starts in May, June. So yeah, it's mostly overcast until probably about 3 hours from now. Then the sun will break through for a few hours, and that'll be it. So
okay.
One of the prices, small price to pay for living in paradise.
Listen, wah.
Yeah, you can hear the tiny violins playing now in symphony.
That's right.
So, right.
That's right.
All right, so the topic today is, do the details still matter in sales? I mean, again, referring to a previous episode, we talked about the good old days when you and I got started in field sales, is details mattered a lot. So, I mean, I had to go out and buy a bunch of suits because we had to wear suits. And actually, when I got started, it was all, the style at the time was all 3-piece suits. And, everybody was dressed to the T. And, that was one of the details that really, really mattered at that point. I mean, now, today, I guess I see, because of the different more informal methods of communication that we've developed from the technology with texting and so on, is that, spelling, grammar, punctuation, sentence structure, people, inside sales jobs, pretty much wear what they want. Does all of that matter? Sort of the global topic for today.
Okay, well, I can end this podcast really quickly by just saying yes, and we can hang up. I think the details matter. And starting with the one that you opened with, which is dress. And does it matter what we wear to the office? There's still company. I know, well, I'll just say IBM in Dublin, Ireland. Okay, so I don't have a huge sample set, but I've heard it here also that they have a dress code even for inside sales. We don't have a dress code for inside sales at SumoLogic, other than you got to dress professionally. Mm-hmm. And I think that how we present ourselves I think it matters. Early on, I mean, to your point, at Xerox, it was a suit and a white blouse, and we really mixed it up. Women wore, like tie scarves. But my sales manager at the time made the point that we're always selling, and we're selling internally. We're selling, like, he believed that the documents and emails that we sent to one another, and they being grammatically correct, and the presentations internal were as important as external. That it's just this habit and rigor around our brand, our personal brand, and what that looks like, whether we're in front of a customer or not.
And I agree. I mean, I think that that's a great way of putting it. Is about the personal brand. Is that everybody needs to be conscious of that, because it becomes a point of differentiation. Whether it's, you're competing with someone internally, maybe unbeknownst to yourself, but you're competing with somebody internally for a specific promotion, or you're competing with somebody internally to have influence over somebody for a specific decision that you want made, or with your prospects and your customers. It makes a difference. For people that want to claim that, spelling the contraction you are, Y-O-U-R, is okay when it's really Y-O-U apostrophe R-E, they're taking a lot for granted when they do that. They're taking for granted. They think that people don't care. And especially if your job is selling something where details matter. If you're representing, let's say, a software company where the details really matter. If you're a prospect and they're saying, gosh, the communications is really sloppy. I mean, the sales rep has got spelling errors and punctuation. Clearly no one's checked it, or the proposals that come and the agreements that come have errors in them. That says, well, gosh, maybe their culture of attention to detail really doesn't flow through to the engineering side. And maybe that's an issue relative to their product.
Yeah, and I think some of it, we all still have this reptilian brain that contributes to what goes on in our minds. And sometimes the thought process, it's not even conscious. So to your point, somebody's sloppy or there are spelling errors. It may not be a conscious thought in the mind of your prospect. Oh, sloppy, spelling errors, sloppy product. But it's an unconscious connection that gets made that creates a bias against your product or service or you as a salesperson. And there's a lot that goes on at the unconscious level. In fact, when I was at Yesware, I did a sales training. I had somebody come in, and all they talked about, I think we had 3 or 4 sessions, were the unconscious side of selling and what people are taking from our email messages and the tone of our voice and the way that we dress and the words that we use that, again, are not maybe conscious in nature, but our unconscious mind still does control or have an influence, I should say, on a lot of the decisions that we make. So I know I've mentioned this book before. It's Bill Walsh's book, The Standards of Performance. And he writes about in his book with the 49ers that every detail mattered to their performance. It mattered the person answering the phone that was selling season tickets, the color of their shoelaces. Every detail mattered. And I really appreciated just, again, it's this bringing all of these together that ends up creating a kind of a good end result.
Yeah, a lot of what I've been speaking about in public sessions recently has to do with the emotional side of decision making. And the science is pretty clear that people make emotional decisions for logical reasons, meaning they're leading with the emotional side of their decision making, and they backfill with the rationale, the rationalizations for why they made that decision. And so this attention to detail and this level of detail, that appeals to or speaks to people on the emotional side of the decisions they make, which is what they lead with. So you are putting yourself at jeopardy if you're not paying attention to the details really every step of the process. So, I mean, one thing that's interesting about how you dress, and you gave up the example of IBM having a dress code for inside sales jobs, is I was reading an article recently that cited a research study that had been done saying that specifically in inside sales jobs, and they were using remote workers as well as part of that sample size, is that they performed better when they dressed better. Meaning that psychologically they felt more prepared and more ready for the job, being dressed, not necessarily wearing a suit and tie, but used to dress professionally, dressed for the job, than if they were in shorts and t-shirts or something like that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of studies and evidence to support that in kind of a wide range of situations. I remember high school, senior year of high school, and we had, after graduation, I was in Southern California, and we would go. They closed Disneyland for a bunch of different graduating seniors, but there was a dress code requirement. That we had the young men needed to be in suits. The women needed to be also maybe it was dresses
at
in
Disneyland.
The day.
At Disneyland.
At Disneyland, because what they found was that as a whole, the groups they behaved better just by the way they dressed. Versus if people came in, shorts and t-shirts and all of that, and I've always remembered that, and I thought, yeah, it's very true. We're sending a message to ourselves about who we are and our level of professionalism. I think it's a message that we send ourselves. It's a really important message about who we are. And I've always, you've probably read this too, Andy, don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. And they say that about, don't do the job you have, but think about the job you want, but also in dress to do that. And again, we may not want to believe that there's a visual component, but even amongst an inside sales team, somebody that comes in and dresses professionally and looks professionally, they're going to have the unconscious advantage over the people that are thinking about, all things being equal, who's going to get promoted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, what about their performance with the customers too?
Absolutely. That's and when you say performance with the customers, what do you mean?
I mean, the people that dress more nicely come in, they're going to be, the research is saying they're going to be more professional, be more successful at their work than those, as I said, that might show up in t-shirts and shorts. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, they're going to be more successful, even on the phone, interacting with customers. There's, we were told when you're cold calling, make sure you sit up straight, have a mirror, be smiling, have your tone. All of this goes into the way that you communicate, and not just the words, but more's communicated with tone than it is with the words we use. So what you're wearing contributes to this.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's your body language.
Contributes to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, I believe that details matter, even the ones that you think one might just on the surface think, well, why does it matter? Nobody sees me.
Right.
And I like you and I've said, I would argue that it definitely matters.
I was just laughing because I don't know if you could hear in the background, but my studio here in San Diego is very close to where the cruise ships come in, and a Disney cruise ship is in the port. And at various times during the day when the ships are hindered, they sound their horns, and usually it's just a blast of a ship horn. But for Disney, it's "If You Wish Upon a Star." So bum 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 bum. That's the big horn you hear them play, and they just blew it twice. I don't know if you were hearing that, but I was being serenaded by it. So maybe if the listeners could hear that.
I couldn't hear it, and I think it's so appropriate that I called into your world, Disney. I feel powerful.
Yes.
There's obviously correlation, but
yes.
I feel powerful nonetheless.
Yeah, it looks like a
What a great coincidence.
yeah, it looks like a fun ship sitting over there too. It's the first time they came to port here in San Diego was quite an event with all the news cameras and so on. But now they come more frequently. But yeah, it's always entertaining when they have the Disney touch to their ship horn.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back. We're going to talk more about with the details that matter with Bridget Gleason. Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today. Okay, we're back. In talking Frontline Friday, we're talking about do the details matter, with a short digression about Disney cruise ships and your high school senior outing to Disneyland wearing your proper dress, which must have taken all the fun out of it.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. That's
Yeah.
what they wanted, because what high school kids think is fun is not necessarily what Disneyland would think is fun. There's a lot more trouble
That goes
involved.
goes
So
without goes without saying.
yeah, I think they achieved their objective, their desired objective.
Yeah, I mean, I remember one night quite a while ago, big tech conference in Anaheim, and they closed Disneyland and opened it for the night for everybody from the tech conference. And yeah, people were as wild as teenagers. I think since the tech industry skewed pretty young, and I think they probably regretted opening the park that night for them. But anyway, so other thing about attention to detail is how you speak. And so one of the things that drives me nuts, and I've written a blog post about this titled, "Hey, I'm not your buddy," is is when salespeople use that term, which to me is just a careless use of language, and it's a habit or an affectation they've gotten into that almost unconscious at some point, but it's really can be off-putting.
And Andy, are you saying that a salesperson would talk to a prospect and say, "Hey, buddy, how are you doing?"
All the time.
That is
If I go
mind-blowing.
to a
That's mind-blowing.
I'll bet you I could get people on your staff to call me that. If I go
bet
to
you could. That's mortifying to me, and I think you're right.
if I go to a conference and there's an exhibit space, and let's say there's vendors out there, and without pointing fingers, it tends to be a little bit of the younger demographic that does it. Is buddy or pal. Pal tends to be older, buddy tends to be younger. The older salespeople tend to, "Hey pal, how you doing? Yeah, pal, that's great." Not your pal, not your buddy. And so,
What about
but the interesting thing is, it's a guy thing. I mean, I don't hear female sales reps say that. So it's kind
no?
of you
No.
say that, of course
No.
not. Your
No,
tone
we're
is,
not
of
gonna-
course not.
I know. We're not going to say, "Hey, buddy."
So
I don't know what we would say, but we're not going to say, "Hey, buddy." We've got our own issues, but we're not going to say, "Hey, buddy."
right. So why, when they're uncomfortable, do male salespeople, default to? Because it's a lack of comfort, right? It's a lack of knowing what else to say, or it's a false attempt to think that the familiarity breeds the relationship. So, what is it that gets them to do that? But secondly, is how do you, or maybe you don't because you haven't heard that much, is how do you work with them to stop doing that? I mean,
Well, it's funny. I hear on calls that a manager will say, "Hey, bud, how you doing? Hey, buddy, how you doing?" Talking to the reps that work for him.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard, I know they use the term. They use the term on any of the calls that I've been on with the reps. I haven't heard it, but now, Andy, I am going to, boy oh boy, pay close attention, because that would drive me crazy. I don't know what it is. I wonder if it's, you mentioned a wanting to like breed some sort of familiarity, and thinking that's that instead of really building a relationship, that's where I think they would use it, is let's use it, and then, hey buddy, I've got a good relationship with the economic buyer. Hey bud, how you doing? I can see them using it that maybe even more so than being nervous. I don't know.
I think it's a vocal tick, or a verbal tick, we'll call it. Similar to saying, or, you know. I mean, I've got a friend who's a wonderfully brilliant person, but when we speak on the phone, literally 30% of his conversation is comprised of the words, you know. And it's it can start driving you to distraction at some point. How do you solve that really? Because right? How do you solve that? So it really requires you to think and be deliberate and mindful about what you're saying. And the thing is, you have to have drills and do some role plays in sales meetings, and then be very conscious as you get the good coaching that you've given people. And I think I just said there, give them good coaching, and then you have to be really mindful about it when you're talking to a prospect. Is just don't slip into that false familiarity, that hey buddy mode, because I know I'm not the only one. That's actually was a blog post, a lot of feedback on people that is like, this drives me to distraction.
I think your point, Andy, about having some discipline or something that you're either doing as a rep or as a manager, whoever is saying it, but also that we lean on our peers and our manager to help point it out when we're saying it, so that we do it less. Sometimes we don't. I'll bet people don't recognize that they're doing it.
Sure. And I think there's some managers that don't recognize their people are doing it. And so it doesn't really occur to them to provide some feedback, is that, hey, there's a better way for us to go with that.
Right. And I've had, when I've done Toastmasters, where they count the number of or O or pauses, they count them. And I had a lot more than I thought I would. I was not aware at all. And it was really helpful to me to pay attention to that and think, okay, that's something I'm going to be more mindful of and pay attention to. But as you point out, it requires sort of an ongoing moderation of and attention to, and any help that you can get from your peers, your manager. I think that'll just help accelerate the, buddy, or whatever it is, whatever verbal tick it is that you've gotten in the habit of saying. I should record myself. I have a lot of reps that record their calls, and then they listen to them. And that's a great place to hear things that you didn't pick up on when you were in the middle of the conversation.
And I think it'd be worth for managers that have those recorded calls available is to understand, first of all, it matters. So you have very few opportunities to make an impression on and help the customer form a perception of you. And it's just these little things we talked about that can really make the difference between you and someone else. At the end of the day, I contend, and I wrote about this in my most recent book, and there's been research done about this by, published an article in the Harvard Business Review a couple of years ago, that the difference between winning and losing in most sales deals is not, hey, you are 5% better, you are 10% better, 15% better than other guys. Basically, you were the same. And the customer was looking for those 1% and 2% differences as reasons to make a decision. And if the customer is put off by you as a sales rep, that could be that 1%. If they thought you got too familiar too quickly, or they think you were too careless, or they thought that they found too many spelling or punctuation errors in the proposal and the contract, that makes a difference. At the end of the day, that could be the 1% difference. That could be the tiebreaker between you and your competitor. So is it important? Absolutely, because you can't assume that it's not important to the people you're selling to.
Yeah, and I like that it's not a 10%, 20%. It's a percentage or two that we're trying to get ahead. It's so back to the details. It's these small things that absolutely matter.
Yeah, they make the difference at the end of the day. Well, good. Well, that talked then again about details, attention to details. As we did last week, we want to ask listeners to start submitting some questions to us because we want to do one or more shows that are comprised of our answers to listeners' questions. And as we said last week, I think we decided this might be the tagline for the show. Your questions will be answered by two of the best and brightest minds in sales, but if we can't find them, you and I will do it instead.
Perfect.
So send your questions. And it could be anything. It could be sales-related, tactical question about closing a deal or working a deal or getting a customer from one stage to another. It could be a particular sales challenge you have with an opportunity or maybe a sales management challenge of any dimension. Between the two of us, we've got centuries of sales experience and more than enough wisdom to help you with your particular situation. So send your questions to Andy@zerotimeselling.com. That will come right to me. Include your name and a title. At a minimum, maybe a brief description of your situation. You can include a company name if you wish, but it's not required. But again, send that to Andy@zerotimeselling.com. And when we accumulate enough questions, we'll start having shows. We'll answer those questions. Right?
Sounds perfect.
Perfect.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Buddy, thanks for being on the show.
All right, bud. Talk to you soon. Have a great
and
one.
Audience, thank you very much for joining us again. Accelerate listeners, and we'll be with you next Friday on Frontline Friday. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.